Currently inked for September 8th, 2016 is brought to you by Ness Pens at vanness1938.com. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Currently Inked. I am always glad to have you back here on the Pen Habit. Really enjoy doing this YouTube channel for you, so excited to get into today's Currently Inked. Before we do, you'll probably notice I've got a little thing on my wrist, and I'm sure I'll get lots of questions about it in the comments. So the short answer is I don't know what happened to my wrist. It just, out of the middle of nowhere, got really sore and very tender, and my fingers got a little weak. So I'm trying a wrist brace for a couple days to see if that helps, and if it doesn't, then we'll go to the doctor. But I'm a man, therefore I don't go to the doctor until it's absolutely necessary. Okay. So before we dive into the pens and the questions for this episode of Currently Inked, I did want to take a quick moment to remind everybody that at this very moment, the Pen Habit and Kenro Industries are teaming up to give away a wonderful fountain pen. It is the Aurora Optima. It is a $600 pen. They're letting you pick your color. They're letting you pick your choice of nib. It's a really great pen. You can find it at penhabit.com. There's a link right there on the homepage right now. It should be the second or third blog post down. That'll be going on for the next couple weeks, so go ahead and enter, and then we'll do the drawing toward the end of the month. Now, right up front, I'll let you know, unfortunately, this is a US-only giveaway. It's the only US-only giveaway I've ever done. And I know that's frustrating for those of you outside of the US, but because Kenro is the US distributor, they have limits on where they can send their pens, and so as not to step on other distributors' territories. So for the time being, this is a US only giveaway. So I'm sorry about that, but we do have other really good giveaways coming up soon. So hang on, there'll be some other ones coming up. And in the meantime, we've got something for those of you who want to maybe look at buying an Optima a little bit later on. So we'll go into that then. Let's go ahead and dive into some questions and some pens now. So if I'm a little short on some of these answers, I apologize. This is literally the 7th time I've recorded this video in the last 24 hours. I got a new webcam. I've been playing around with it, having problems with audio sync. I forgot to hit record one time. Someone added me to a grouped text message and I kept getting replies. P.S. If you use group text messaging, you are everything that is wrong in this world. For shame. And if you reply to group text messaging, you're even worse. So let's dive into questions. This first one comes from Tristan in Belgium, and Tristan's been a long time Pen Habit viewer. So hi, Tristan. Tristan asks, you might have seen the double-ended fountain pen from Edison. Do you know if there are other brands that have double-ended fountain pens? Stephen Brown showed one off once, but I don't remember the name of the video. So I have seen that Edison double-ended pen. Aside from that, though, I've not seen a double-ended pen from any production manufacturer. The only places I've seen other double-ended fountain pens have been from custom makers like Jonathan Brooks from the Carolina Pen Company or Sean Newton. So to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any other double-ended pens out there that are just part of a regular production line. But if anybody else knows of any, I'm sure that they would leave them in the comments. So if you know of any double-ended pens, go ahead, drop them in the comments and help Tristan out. All right, let's move on. The next one is from Christian. And Christian asks a variation of a question I get all the time. You know, it's kind of a what's your favorite, or if you had to take one ink to an island, what would it, what ink would it be, that kind of thing. I get those kind of questions all the time, and my answers always change. But Christian asks, if you lost your entire pen and ink collection, what would be the first couple of pens and inks you would repurchase, assuming you could only find what was now generally available and for purchase? So, and the reason I answered this instead of kind of skipping it, because, I don't want to do the same variations of the same question over and over again, but there's a little difference here that I thought was kind of interesting I wanted to talk about. So, my understanding of what's available has really changed in the last couple of years as I've started attending pen shows. And I've come to realize that, especially at larger shows, you can find almost anything. Even stuff that's not on the market anymore is still available. It may cost more, but it's still available. So, you know, at this latest San Francisco show, I found a very rare Waterman 7 with a pink nib I talked about last week. I found a Parker Duofold that was manufactured in 1989, and I found I got an Aurora Optima, but I've also gotten a Parker Vacuumatic and a Waterman 94, and I saw Omas Brown Arco pens all over the place in San Francisco and DC. So even though a lot of those aren't in production anymore, most things are still available because a lot of people buy them and they store them to sell later. So now what I would replace, obviously I'd probably go after at least one Classic Pens LB5 because that is my favorite pen. And I'd probably go after an Aurora Optima. Basically it's going to be kind of going down my top 10 list. An Aurora Optima, I'd probably go after a Visconti Divina and a Bronze Age. And then at least one Omas Arco, you know, because who knows if that material is going to be made anymore. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now, inks are a little bit different because a lot of times when an ink goes out of production, it gets really, really hard to find. And, you know, with the exception of a couple of random inks like some of the limited edition Mont Blanc or the Parker Penman inks, finding old bottles of ink is a lot trickier than finding old pens. You know, ink is a commodity, it's used up, so a lot of times it doesn't stick around the same way a pen will. In terms of inks I would go after, it would be kind of my stable of inks that I turn toward first. So Piano Bung Box Mahogany, Ackermann number 5, 11, and 28, which are Shocking Blue, Trevet Turquoise, and Hofgevoelte Grün. I would go for Mont Blanc. I'm just looking. I've got my picture in front of me, watching myself, and I'm just looking at the boxes behind me. So I'd probably go for the Lavender Purple from Mont Blanc and the Irish Green, Quizzy Iron Gall Turquoise, Visconti Turquoise, probably a Sailor ink or two, maybe Okuyama and Souten, and probably a brighter green. Or a darker green, excuse me, like Diamine Sherwood Green. Oh, and Diamine Autumn Oak. So those would be the ones I'd go after first. Obviously with ink, it's a lot easier to find and to get a lot more of these. So I'd probably buy a lot of inks really pretty quickly. Okay, let's look at pens. So this pen is something a little different than what I normally look at. I'm gonna switch the over to manual focus here because I think this camera has a little bit of difficulty focusing. There we go. So this is a Nemesign Singularity. It's a clear demonstrator, really affordable pen at about 20 bucks. Nemesign sent this over to me to review and to give them some feedback on the product, and so I'm working on that right now. So it's a really nice little pen. It's for 20 bucks. It's, you know, it's a great price, nice nib. There's a couple interesting things about it, some that I like and some that I don't, but I don't want to give away too much now. But really, it seems to be a well-made pen. The nib behaves very nicely, so I've been playing around with that a little bit. And when it comes to what I've got it inked with, I am looking at this Robert Auster signature Bondi blue, which is kind of a turquoisey, beachy blue color. That it doesn't show up here because the nib is so fine, but it has a really nice red sheen on good paper like Tomoe River, something like that. So been playing around with the pen. I like it a lot. I think it's a really good value for 20 bucks. So I've been pretty impressed with this so far. All right, let us look at another question. This one's from Jade in Australia, who asks, after seeing your traveler's notebook in a recent video where you mentioned it's part of your daily carry, I'd love to see what your daily carry is. I know you use a Penvelope 13, but maybe you could go into your decision process for, say, always having a finer nib with a permanent ink in it or something. So I actually don't use the Penvelope 13 for my daily carry. That's more when I'm going to pen posse meetings or, you know, going to pen shows or stuff like that, and I want to have a lot of pens with me. Most of the time for a daily carry, when I'm going to work or things like that, I take 3 pens with me. It's usually in a Nock Co. I think it's the Lookout, the one with the little flap, 3-pen case. I've actually been looking at getting one of the Tom Barrington Stingray leather cases that I talked about a couple of episodes back. Those are only 2-pen cases, but I really like them. So I'm looking at getting one of those as well. But the reason I only take 3 pens with me when I go places is because I accidentally left a 10-pen wallet on an airplane once, and I left that same 10-pen wallet in a conference room at my office, my old office once. Both times I got it back, thank goodness, because both times it was full of very expensive pens. And I realized that I wasn't having that wide variety to carry along with me every day was unnecessary. The likelihood that I would write more than 3 pens dry in a day was non-existent. So in order to limit the potential loss and also to keep it easier on myself, I just limit myself to 3. Now, what those 3 are varies widely, and I don't really have any rhyme or reason for that. I usually try to keep at least 1 pen with me that I am evaluating for review, because I want to use it during the day and see how it works, taking long form notes and short form notes and capping and uncapping, and if it dries out when it's left uncapped and if it dries out when it's capped and all that kind of stuff. So I usually keep at least 1 review pen with me, but I also take a couple of other pens, which are just pens I like to use, I like to write with. I generally try to keep it so I don't have multiples of the same color family, so I don't usually carry multiple greens or multiple purple inks. And I like to have one with a fine-ish nib, just because sometimes I'm forced to use less than high-quality paper, but that's not necessary. In addition, I also carry my traveler's notebook, and I've got 3 notebooks in here. I've got this currently inked insert. I've got the little plastic zippered envelope to store things in. Then I've got a prototype I'm working on of a bullet planner, bullet journal style planner. I've been prototyping it and playing around with it, and it's coming along really well. I like it a lot. So that's something I'm just about finished with this one. It's a 3-month book, so I'm just about finished with this one. I'm going to start the next one, and then I'm going to make some final adjustments and get it over to the printers. So that should be coming out soon, hopefully. And then I've got just a lined notebook for notes and things to jot down, that kind of stuff. So this is formerly of Midori. So this is the official traveler's notebook sleeve. I actually just ordered one from an Etsy seller in Canada. It's a little bit longer, so you can put more books in there. And the Midori only has a single elastic in the middle, and then you're supposed to use these rubber bands to put the extra inserts in, which I don't like doing. It doesn't lay well when you do that. So this particular faux dory has 4 elastics on the inside, so I can put up to 4 books in without having to use any of those funky rubber band things. And so I'm probably going to put a blank notebook in there as well to go along with. But obviously, since I make, traveler's notebook inserts, it makes sense that I would carry them with me. And then when I'm going to work, I always carry a wire-bound, side-bound Rhodia A4 notebook, lined. It's the one with the perforated pages. I use that for taking my weekly notes or my daily notes, and then at the end of every week, I rip those out and scan them into Evernote. So I don't have all my old notes with me in paper form, but I have a document scanner that I just scan them into Evernote and keep them there. And if I'm going somewhere where I'm going to write letters or, write in my journal or something, I will carry that around with me. I have a manila folder that's got Tomoe River paper that has very faint lines that I've printed on it, run it through my printer and just done faint lines on one side. And in that folder also I have it's a writing mat. It's a kind of a plasticky, rubbery writing mat I got from Nanami Paper. They've stopped carrying the A4 size, unfortunately, so I've also gotten one from Jet Pens. I don't like the one from Jet Pens as much as the one from Nanami Paper, but I can't find that green one that they used to have in the A4 size, so I use the clear one that I got from Jet Pens instead. So that's basically my daily carry. I take my MacBook Air with me, my phone, my wallet, my keys, and that's about it. I don't carry a lot of stuff with me, so I usually keep a lot of stuff at my office. I've got my file cabinets in my office are usually crammed with what would go in a purse or a bag, because I don't like carrying all that stuff with me. So anyway, Well, before we dive into the next pen, let me take a moment to talk about the sponsor for this episode, which is Ness Pens. Now, Ness has been a really great sponsor for the Pen Habit for the last several months. They've been in business since 1938 and are run by the third generation of Van Nesses, Mike and Lisa Van Ness. Van Ness has one of the largest ink selections in the States with over 1,000 different colors in their catalog. And they've got a lot of inks you can't get anywhere else here in the States. You know, inks like Quizzy and Califolio and Sailor Bungbox. You know, they're one of only a couple retailers that sell Ackermann. There's only one of a couple retailers who sell Robert Auster signature inks. So they've got a lot of really great inks there, but they also have a lot of really great pens. And this month they're heavily featuring the newly priced Aurora Optima. Now, I've talked about the Aurora Optima before. I'm giving one away right now. But they are also, you know, Aurora just dropped the price of the Optima by almost $200. Both Aurora and Kenro worked it out to drop the price a little bit. So now a pen that I loved at with a list price of $700 or $800 is now a list price of $600 or $550 or $550 or $600, and with an actual purchase price of $450 to $500. So if you're looking for a really great luxury pen, I cannot recommend the Aurora Optima highly enough. I've got two of them. I love them. I use them often. I've got my blue one inked right now. I haven't inked the green one yet. I really want to, but I want to write the blue one clear, write it clean first. But Van Ness is offering anyone who wants to purchase an Aurora Optima through them, who watches this currently inked episode, a 10% off discount code. So if you type in Pen Habit, all caps, all one word, when you check out with an Aurora Optima in your cart, you will get 10% off that Optima. So a pen that used to cost $600, $700 now costs $450 or $500, and you get an extra 10% off on top of that, and free shipping. If you're in the US, free shipping over $40. So it's a great deal. It's a great pen. And of course, a huge thank you to Van Ness Pens for continuing to sponsor and support the Pen Habit. I really do appreciate it. They make it possible for me to do what I do. So thank you so much. All right. Oh, really quickly, vanness1938.com. You can go back to their website and check it all out there, or head over to penhabit.com. There will be a link to the Aurora Optimas directly in the show notes. Okay, our next question comes from NKP in Toronto, which is a great city. I really like Toronto, who asks, since the classic pens LB5 and the Sailor King of Pen both use the same internals and nib, what makes the LB5 greater than the Sailor KOP for you? Shorter answer is those materials, that diffusion bonded acrylic that the classic pens LB5 are made of, is what pushes me over the edge with the King of Pen. Now, I've never used a King of Pen itself, you know, a Sailor branded King of Pen as opposed to a classic pens LB5. The plain black ones just don't do anything for me aesthetically. They do have some lovely mosaic ones they're a little pricier, but not significantly pricier than, you know, the black ebonite version. But that diffusion bonded acrylic, there's just something about it that I mean, the photos are great, but the photos don't show the motion of the material. And I know that sounds a little weird and new agey, and I get it, but if you're going to spend that kind of money on a pen, it's clear that you have gone beyond that. It has to write well. You can get pens that write well for $20, $10 even. So once you get past a certain point, you're buying an increase in quality of craftsmanship, an increase in quality control, that sort of thing. And then beyond that, you're really getting into, this pen is either a collector's item, a piece of art that I'm collecting because I believe it's going to increase in value or I really like it, or you are collecting a tool that is both functional and really aesthetically pleasing. And that's for me what the materials of the classic pens LB5 are. They're just beautiful materials. They're deep and rich, and they have motion and movement, and it just, they're everything. I mean, there's a reason why I love these pens, and they're just so wonderful. They're nicely balanced. It's a perfect gestalt I'm going all new agey today. It's a perfect gestalt of functionality, design, manufacture, quality control, and aesthetics. And together, it sings for me. Now, I've looked at other pens in this price range. Some I really like, but none of them have really sung to me enough to push me over the edge to buying them. And so, you know, it's kind of this whole package thing. I know that's not terribly helpful, but hopefully that'll kind of answer your question. Let's dive into another pen. This is one, I don't know that I've showed this one before. If I haven't, gotta do the focus here. This is the Omas Arte Italiana Paragon, but this is the green Arco material. This is much less common than the brown Arco. It's not quite as highly figured, and it's hard to see in this light, but it's got a silver base with this green, dark green. You can see it kind of up here. The dark green material fading into kind of a bluish black material. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous pen. You know, that Arco material just is really quite lovely to me. Sorry, I'll get faster at focusing the camera. That's new to me. It's just a really beautiful, gorgeous material, and I really, really like it. But it's, and I like the form factor. I like the Ogiva a little bit better, I feel. Now, when I bought this, I bought it new, but it was, you know, this pen hasn't been made for over 10 years, I think. The nib was kind of tilted down a little bit at the tip. So when I was in San Francisco, I took this to Mr. Masayama, who fixed it up and got it writing beautifully. And so I just inked it up a couple days ago because I haven't used it since I got back from San Francisco and had him test it, and I wanted to play with it some more. So that is my other pen, and I've got it inked with this very interesting green ink here, this Robert Auster signature Jade. Now this Jade ink it's a color that I don't know that I've got anything else that's quite like it. It's kind of a combination between like military fatigue green and grass green, and it kind of meets right in the middle, which I like a lot. I really feel like it works really, really well. I don't think it looks a whole lot like Jade, but that's just me. So I would, yeah, that's what I've got inked in here right now. I like the shading on it. I like a little bit of sheen that I'm getting on the ink. So it's a cool ink. I think this is one I'm going to end up using quite a bit. Okay, grab another question here. Sorry, just going through them. I've looked through some of these before. So Max from Australia asks, do you think the effect of flex nibs is affected by the thickness of the tip? Does a fine flex offer more variation than a broad? Short answer is yes, absolutely. Now I have a real good example of this is I have two Waterman Ideal number 7s. One of them is with the red nib, which is the medium flex nib, and it starts with a medium point and flexes. And then the other is a pink nib, which is an extra fine point. It's extra fine flex. So both nibs flex about the same, but the pink nib looks like it flexes a whole lot more because it's starting from a much finer point. So a lot of, like John from Flex Nib Pens, where I bought this Waterman 7 pink, had a really interesting classification system, and one that I like, and I think I'm probably going to start adopting. But he color-coded all of his Flex pens kind of between how many nib gauges difference between the unflexed and the flexed you'd get. So, you know, he'd have like yellow. If it had a yellow tag, it was a 2X. So if you started with fine, it would flex between fine, medium, and broad. If you started with extra fine, it would flex to extra fine, fine, medium. A 3X would be like extra fine to medium to broad, so you could get extra fine to broad. And then 4 were the most expensive because they're the flexiest. Those are often the wet noodles. And those are also a lot less common, and that's what the pink nib is, because it goes from an extra fine to like a double broad, a 4 plus, even almost a triple broad, because you get a lot of line variation on there. So yeah, the finer the point, you know, if a nib flexes to a double broad, but it's only got a medium point, it's only going to be a semi-flex nib. It's only like a 2x flex, as opposed to a 4x flex, where if it started from extra fine. You could tweak that a little bit by having the tips ground down to a really fine point. And if you ever get one of John Modishaw's Spencerian grinds, that's basically what he does. He takes a Pilot Falcon, for instance, he'll thin out the metal a little bit to make it more flexible, and then he'll grind the point down to this really, really fine, extra fine point, needle point, so you get a really fine low level and a slightly wider you know, flex point, and that gives you the variation you need for Spencerian, in theory. So yeah, that's basically my understanding of flex. Now granted, I'm still very new in the flex world, so I'm still learning this, but that's my understanding. Now, this is a really good question. I saw this and I thought I wanted to tackle this one. So this one's from Adam in San Francisco. And Adam says, I've been trying and failing to save up for this and that over these past couple of months, and it's not always for pens. Sometimes it's an album, it's a longboard, or sometimes it's pen repair supplies. Or in retreating back to the pen basics, it's a pen. However, when I seem to achieve some steam on the track to successfully saving something, I find something I just can't live without, or so I tell myself. Do you have any recommendations for staying stalwart to my savings in the face of things that I find I have to have? And he put have to have in quotes. So I love this question. And I love this question because A, I think it's hysterical that you think I have any answers, because clearly this is a problem I struggle with. But I think it's also something that people who are new to a hobby run into over and over and over again, which is there's just so much out there, and it's acquire. And pens are one of the only hobbies where I have been in it long enough now where that initial drive to just acquire everything has started to falter. And now I'm being very particular about what it is I want to acquire. And the desire for me to just go out and buy a bunch of pens every time I see one online is almost completely gone. I mean, every now and again I'll see a material and it's like, I want a pen in that material. So custom pens are a little bit different for me in that respect. When it comes to how to save, though, I haven't really figured it out all that well myself. I've gotten better, but not super, super well. So a couple things that I try to keep in mind. First, quality is always, always, always better than quantity. It's better to get one really, really great pen that you love and could just sit and look at for hours at a time than to get 50 pens that cost, you know, $10 each, that they're fine and they're writing, you know, but if you're going to get into this hobby and you're really serious about it, then focus on the quality. I think that's a big one. For me, the other thing is I've had to kind of pull myself out of there's an aspect of the fountain pen community in particular, well, not in particular, but of the fountain pen community that is very, very consumer-based. And I know that sounds very rich coming from me, the guy who reviews pens and gives away pens and talks about pens all the time. But you know, I've had to pull myself. I don't visit the forums and the Reddit threads and the newsletters and stuff like that, because I don't need to see all of the new stuff that's coming in. Kind of going back to something I said a little earlier as well, the FOMO thing, the fear of missing out. I've learned over this last couple of years is a little overblown, because especially when it comes to pens, you can almost always find the pen you want later on down the road. You know, if they sold, someone will eventually sell them again. So if you miss something, it's not the end of the world. You know, people freak out about the Pelican Brown, M800 Brown Tortoise, which they stopped making several years ago. I found one a couple years ago. It was in Singapore. I had it shipped to me, but I found one. They're harder to find, but they're not impossible. So, you know, I think realize that you can find some of these pens after they're no longer in production. It's still possible. You might pay a little extra, but that's okay. Don't worry about every new thing that comes out. Being an early adopter is fun, but it's not satisfying most of the time, because half the time you're going to early adopt something and find out you don't like it. And then kind of the last thing that I've been playing around with, and again, this gets a little bit, you know, I've used the term new agey, and I don't think that's right, but there's this, you know, this whole vision board concept where you've got, you know, pictures of the things you want in your life, this whole law of attraction bull plop. And I'm sorry if you're into the law of attraction, that's great. I'm glad it works for you and it's happy. That's just not me. Never has been, never will be. But the idea of consistently reminding yourself of what it is you're working for, I think will help you save better for the things you really want and not worry so much about the things you think you want right now. So, you know, I kind of keep a list of the things that I'm saving my money for. And if something comes in, you know, it's in an Excel spreadsheet. And if something comes in that I'm like, I have to have it, I pull that list up and I actually look at it and say, okay, where in here does this fit? Is it something that needs to take over the number 1 spot? Or is it something that will fit down at number 11, number 12, number 13? And if I do that, a lot of times I'll come back 3-4 months later and realize, oh, I don't really even want this anymore. So finding a way to step back from the excitement of oh my gosh, there's a new color of Lamy Safari, or oh my gosh, there's a new color of Lamy Ink, or a new color of Pelican M400. It's like, you know, the Brown Tortoise M400 just came out, was reissued recently. And I was getting excited about it. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even like the 400. It's too small for my hand. Why am I getting, you know, it's like, I don't need to own this. So, you know, maybe throw together an Amazon wish list, order the stuff the way you want it. And every time something new comes in, take a look at that list and pop it in there and see if that, you know, say, oh, well, yeah, this is number 3. So it's okay if I go ahead and buy it now, even though it's ahead of 1 and 2, I'm going to go ahead and buy it now. But if it's number 50, save your money. So again, I don't really know. I've not experienced it a whole lot. I'm not real good at it, but those are just some ideas that I've been playing around with. All right, last pen, and then maybe one more question, we'll wrap up. So I showed this last week, just as my haul from San Francisco. This is the Parker Duofold Centennial. This was made in 1989. This is the lapis lazuli material, acrylic material. It's a really nice pen. I haven't inked it up yet. I really wanted to, but I don't know how well you're able to see that. Really great decorative nib on there. Kind of cool. So yeah, I hadn't inked it up yet. I wanted to, and I wanted an ink that kind of, you know, showed off that real bright blue that the pen is made of. So I went with Private Reserve DC Super Show Blue to go along with it. This is a blue I like a lot. It's kind of, in my mind, Private Reserve's answer to, you know, Noodler's Bay State Blue. It's not quite as fluorescent, but it's a little bit better behaved and not quite so persistent, sticking to everything. So I like it a lot. I've used it quite a bit, but I hadn't used it in a real long time. You know, my Private Reserve stash is up there on the top shelf. I don't have a ton of Private Reserve, but I've liked the inks I've used in the past. I just haven't used them for a long time because they're up in the corner and I never see them when I'm inking stuff up. So anyway, all right. And then maybe let's grab one more question and wrap up the video. This is from Keith in Shropshire, who Shropshire, England, who asks, does Luke the dog have any plans to make another appearance either when your back is turned or by special invite? Yes, hopefully. Usually it's I try not to bring him into the studio too much because there are only a couple of refuge areas from the dog hair in my house, and this room and the guest room are pretty much it. Everywhere else, dog hair is everywhere all the time. After getting ribbed about having dog hair all over my clothes in an earlier video a couple seasons ago, I decided, let's try to keep him out of the studio. He's interesting because he's not really into... Luke is a cat in a golden retriever's body. You know, a lot of golden retrievers are like, oh my gosh, I love you, I want to be around you, I want to cuddle, I want to snuggle. Luke is not like that at all. He's very independent. If it were up to him, he would be out in the backyard all day long, just laying in the backyard. I keep the back door open a lot when I'm home, and if given the option, he will never be inside the house. He won't sleep on my bed. He won't snuggle with me on the couch. He likes me and I like him, but he's just a very independent dog. He's a cat dog. So getting him to do what I want when I'm doing these videos is really hard. It's funny, I wish one of the earlier videos I had recorded had worked out, because he just walked in here and hopped up, put his paws on the table right here, and was just looking at what I was doing. But unfortunately, that one was one where I forgot to start the microphone, so there was no audio. and then I didn't save the video, so I don't even have that anymore either. So yeah, I'm sure he'll show up again, but the effort it takes to get him in here and to sit still for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or however long it is for me to record is really hard. And to get him to do anything when I'm on the screen at the same time is even harder. So maybe if I am ever to the point where I can start hiring a cameraman to come run the camera for my video sessions, that would help. But anyway. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Currently Inked. It is September 8th, 2016, so thank you again for joining me here. A huge thank you again to Ness Pens at VanNess1938. Don't forget, if you are looking for an Aurora Optima and want an extra 10% off, you can get it by typing in Pen Habit, all caps, all one word, when you check out at VanNess1938.com with an Aurora Optima in your cart. If you're here in the States, you'll also get free shipping on that order. Overseas, it's not free shipping, but they'll take care of you as well if you're ordering from overseas. So, and of course, all the regular things. Make sure to enter the Aurora Optima giveaway that I've got going on right now. Make sure to head over to Facebook or Twitter to subscribe there. If you'd like to order the Currently Inked notebooks, either in the traveler size or the pocket size, the Inky Fingers notebooks, excuse me, those are available on penhabit.com. And of course, I will accept any donations or supportive help that you are willing and able to send my way to help me continue doing this. So patreon.com/penhabit if you want to join me as a Patreon patron, or paypal.me/penhabit if you wanted to just send me a little donation to help me keep these going. So thank you again so much for all your support and all your help, and we will see you here next time on the Pen Habit. Bye.